I'm not even going to attempt to be humble. I called it, I told you so. I first predicted Sparks of Hope back in April 2021 after a little internet sleuthing, and then predicted future Rayman content courtesy of Mr. Davide Soliani and his Milan and Paris colleagues in a December 2021 video. So you're welcome, and I'll gladly accept virtual pats on the back or on the top of the head if you're feeling extra generous down in the comments. In all seriousness, I have a lot I want to say in this video. I'm feeling fired up, I'm feeling impassioned, so I'm going to go topic by topic, starting with my micro review of Sparks of Hope. And in short, it's one of those games I'm glad simply exists. I loved Kingdom Battle. It's one of my favorite Switch games and one of the most surprising Switch games, hands down, and I've had a blast with Sparks of Hope too. We need more fun, imaginative crossover games like this, games that put iconic characters like Mario in fresh and exciting and unusual situations that allow for possibilities like the inclusion of Donkey Kong, like Rayman, with beautiful environments and character models, thanks to an impressive game engine and a band of clearly talented artists. The animation work alone in these Mario plus Rabbids games blows my mind. Seriously, this is verging on Pixar level quality. And look, I can be as skeptical and curmudgeonly about gaming and pop culture these days as anybody I know, but I never stop smiling when I'm playing these games. You just have to experience them yourself to know what I'm talking about, but they're truly laugh out loud funny, hilarious. Whether this kind of game is your jam or not, there's no denying that real TLC was poured into Sparks of Hope, from the excellent orchestral soundtrack composed by Grant Kirkhope and others, to the whimsical designs of individual weapons and assets. So thank you, Davide and team, for creating this experience, for, in my opinion, really legitimizing and rebranding and repositioning the Rabbids in a way that makes sense, that satisfies longtime Rabbids fans, and perhaps converts some holdouts who long thought the Rabbids were just annoying. I mean, come on, look at this little guy. How can you not love him? And props too for giving us a non-sports or party game in 2022 that had Mario on the cover, because Nintendo did not do that, but the very good stewards of this delicate IP at Ubisoft Milan and Paris, they did. They made sure we got a bona fide Mario game last year. And I say all of this not just because I feel I have to support this game or something, but because I want to. Because Sparks of Hope delivers in the department that matters most, which is gameplay. The unique, tactical, turn-based, RTS-inspired gameplay formula that I think everybody should give a try, because now that I've tasted it, I never want it to go away, and I can't help but imagine all the ways in which this Mario plus Rabbids formula now could be iterated on in the future. The playable characters, the explorable environments, just going from rigid movement to free movement between Kingdom Battle and Sparks of Hope. As someone who's poured a lot of hours into Kingdom Battle, it's crazy. It breaks your brain at first. There's so many possibilities, so much strategy crammed into every turn. It's genuinely fun and analytical and engaging, and that's coming from someone who's typically bored by turn-based combat. Sparks of Hope, like all games, isn't perfect. The pacing is maybe a little off at times. I'm still mixed on the occasional voice acting. The open zones are welcomed in some ways and maybe too distracting at other times. I often just want more of the combat gameplay and nothing else. Honestly, all in all, there may be certain aspects about Kingdom Battle I remember more fondly, but the ambition here of this wild intergalactic story and setting that features familiar and unfamiliar characters, it's so appreciated. Especially because Paper Mario is a different entity today than it was 20 years ago, and because the Mario and Luigi franchise is basically dead, and who knows what's happening with Mario vs. Donkey Kong and the Minis games. So it feels like we need an alternative Mario franchise more than ever, and thankfully, Mario plus Rabbids continues to deliver. Now, on to the second and I think more important topic, the soup du jour, if you will, Sparks of Hope's sales. Recent news reports and comments from the corporate suit himself, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, have informed us that Sparks of Hope has failed to meet Ubisoft's sales expectations since its release, which was like 5 seconds ago, late October. Here's the full quotes from a recent Ubisoft financial update, which was reported on by Andy Robinson at VGC on January 11th. So the French publisher said it was facing major challenges and claims that sales over the holiday season had been markedly and surprisingly slower than expected. Sparks of Hope and Just Dance 23 were two games which failed to meet expectations. Despite excellent ratings and players' reception as well as an ambitious marketing campaign, we were surprised by Sparks of Hope underperformance in the final weeks of 2022 and early January, the report said. When there's more pressure, people go for the biggest brands and they don't go for the small ones, said Guillemot. I don't think of a game with Mario on the cover as being a small brand, but I guess compared to Assassin's Creed these days, it is. What we have observed is that there has been some contraction in overall consumer spending coming from the economic environment and raising inflation. As you mentioned, that has led to the biggest mega brands and live services taking a larger share of the market, leaving less available consumer spending for other launches. That's the clear conclusion that we've taken. We've seen that there are other games of high quality that have underperformed. Guillemot said he believed in the long term the Rabbids sequel would still do good numbers. Its predecessor, released in 2017, has sold 10 million. All we can say about Rabbids is that the game has been really well appreciated by players. We are getting community ratings that are excellent. We feel the game is going to do good numbers over time, but the beginning was not all that we had expected. And then there's also this other, perhaps more ridiculous component where Kotaku got their hands on an internal Ubisoft email where Guillemot tells employees the ball is in their court to fix the company's financial problems. Whew, all right, where to start? If you watch my channel, you know I've said my piece about Guillemot and the Ubisoft corporate machine in past videos, but man, as a lifelong gamer, as someone who grew up during an era in which Rayman and Sam Fisher were this company's mascots, it's hard to feel optimistic about the direction of Ubisoft at large. And this guy right here, this very, 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 very rich business executive, rubs me the wrong way almost every time he opens his mouth like this. Number one, you don't throw your artists and designers and programmers under the bus like this. You protect your people. You maybe don't comment on sales at all, or if you do, you deflect, you go glass half full. Maybe, yeah, you're nervous about appeasing the stakeholders or whatever, but you project confidence. You say, hey, we're not jumping to conclusions. We're super proud of this game and the work the teams did, and we're confident it has legs and will continue to sell well for a long time regardless of what's happened in the last couple months. What you don't do is a very public shock and awe shtick. We thought we'd be richer by now. It's such a surprise. Yeah, I know he tries to soften the blow by mentioning the community support and stuff, but that feels empty to me. For him, it's clearly about sales. Guillemot cares about money. That's his love language here. And while Guillemot's business philosophy leaves a lot to be desired, at the same time, that doesn't mean there aren't good, talented people who still work at this company. Sparks of Hope is evidence of that. I see Davide Soliani and his associated teams as at least one giant shining light within Ubisoft, and as of 2023, they seem to be a bit of a black sheep. When you look at the typical fare Ubisoft pumps out these days, all of the paint-by-numbers shooters and battle royales and open world fetch quest fests, and then you look at Sparks of Hope, there's a clear disconnect. And I only hope that just because Sparks of Hope doesn't sell like the next Assassin's Creed or something, that suits like Guillemot don't pull the plug and stop financing interesting IPs like this. You know, I remember similar headlines after the release of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, and I really detest this stuff where executives make seemingly passive-aggressive public comments, gaming journalists further sensationalize those comments, and ultimately you have the talented artists and designers who poured their hearts into a game waking up to see tweets about how it didn't sell well enough. Crash 4 sold just fine, but because we're dealing with Activision, no, it did not sell like Call of Duty. Just like I'm sure Sparks of Hope hasn't sold like, well, insert generic Ubisoft IP of your choosing. What happened to relativity? Since when are all games measured by the same criteria? When you're a giant company, you determine what's successful and what's not based on where you place the goalposts. Spend a couple hours with Sparks of Hope and then take a quick look at Ubisoft stock prices relative to other gaming giants like Activision and tell me whose court the proverbial ball is in. One party here is absolutely doing their job. Here's an example. Take Housemarque's Returnal for PS5, one of my favorite games in recent years, probably now one of my truly favorite games of all time. I want to say Returnal had only sold like 500,000 copies or something, which isn't a ton for a game published by Sony, but the executives were thrilled. To them, for that game and its potential audience, this was a huge success. It was proof of concept, and Housemarque was promptly rewarded and formally added to the PlayStation family, and now, hopefully, with Sony's financing and resources, that means gamers like myself can look forward to more top-notch Housemarque games in the coming years. All these big companies have their pros and cons, right? Sony is not exempt. Sony does gross stuff like everybody else. But in this case, I applaud them, because they clearly did not expect Returnal to do numbers like God of War or Horizon. They judged it appropriately, as they should have. So it's hard to understand why other big companies like Ubisoft and Activision, even these corporate suits who maybe aren't artists themselves but must be intelligent to some degree by virtue of their position, why they don't just allow and budget for a handful of studios to experiment and to try new and different things. The sales of the big IPs bankroll everybody, including the CEOs. So to squash innovation and experimentation and artistic expression just because something relatively new and different didn't match the sales potential of some of the richest video game IPs ever created, all I can do is sigh. And any gamer with their eyes open knows Kingdom Battle has been on sale for years now. It's constantly discounted and was even before the release of Sparks of Hope. I want to say I got its gold edition through the Switch eShop back on Black Friday a couple years ago for like $20 tops. Make no mistake, I believe Kingdom Battle is a great game and deserves to be sold at full price. But the discounts have helped Ubisoft move thousands, if not millions of copies year after year. And I'm not even saying the discounts were a bad idea. From one point of view they were, from another point of view they weren't. But I know it got a lot of people to take a chance on a new IP that included the Rabbids, who have undoubtedly been polarizing. And I'd wager that most gamers who took that leap were glad they did. And they've probably picked up Sparks of Hope, or are planning to do so down the line as a result. Maybe when it inevitably goes on sale. Guillemot and other executives like him are so rich they may be unaware, but some people do have to face economic realities. And last I checked, a dozen eggs in America are currently selling for nearly $10. So yeah, maybe some people are delaying non-essential purchases, Yves. That's your problem, not theirs, and not Ubisoft Milan's. The bottom line is, I certainly hope Guillemot's comments about Sparks of Hope sales don't mean the Mario plus Rabbids IP or our revitalized hopes for the Rayman IP are in danger. But time will tell. It's clear Davide Soliani and his like-minded colleagues within Ubisoft are going to do everything in their power to make quality games and specifically to rejuvenate Rayman. Soliani has said so himself on more than one occasion. He loves Rayman. He's worked on Rayman games, and if allowed, he'll deliver. I just hope he has that opportunity. And Soliani, always the gentleman, has replied on Twitter to a number of concerned fans in recent days, assuring them, nah, I'm fine, the studio's fine, the DLCs are still happening, don't worry about things. And that's good to hear. With Ubisoft canceling a number of unannounced projects, it's nothing short of a miracle that they haven't axed Soliani's ambitious DLC schedule. But to be honest, I'm less concerned about Sparks of Hope and more concerned about the future, about Rayman. If Guillemot doesn't think Ubisoft stands to make meaningful revenue from Rayman-related projects in the future, as I've said many times before, outsource or completely sell the IP to a group that cares, to a team that wants to be a steward of this important platforming mascot. If you haven't already, check out my June 2021 video in which I discuss this topic in depth and which developers and publishers could, in a fantasy scenario, probably take good care of the Rayman IP. I know of some gamers too who, because of past allegations against Ubisoft and some of their employees, outright refuse to purchase any Ubisoft games moving forward. And as a consumer, that's their right. I respect that. And I do relate to this impulse, and in recent years have felt more motivated than ever to support indie studios and small games that are made with integrity. But speaking for myself, I cannot sign off on the behavior of every employee at every company for which I'm a patron. It's impossible. I'd have no clothes in my closet, no books on my shelf, and probably no video games either. All I can do is make a judgment call on a case-by-case basis, and in this case, I do feel that despite some of Ubisoft's ugliness, there's clearly good people on the inside trying to take care of the Mario plus Rabbids and Rayman IPs, and I do support that. So if you feel similarly, I'd encourage you to vote with your wallet. Go get a copy of Sparks of Hope. Check out Kingdom Battle if you haven't already. Heck, experience games like Rayman 2 and Rayman Origins for yourself, and you'll understand where I'm coming from. Why it hurts me that this fantastic platforming franchise that I grew up with and have been playing ever since has been dormant for the last 10 years. My fingers are certainly crossed though, because it feels like we're still looking at a chain reaction. In order to get a new official mainline Rayman game, the Ubisoft suits likely have to be persuaded that it's worthwhile to finance and create one. So if Sparks of Hope does well over time, if the Rayman DLC generates a lot of interest, that could, just maybe, lead to a new standalone Rayman game. I hope directed by Soliani. Now with Rayman creator Michel Ancel out of the picture, I feel Soliani is clearly the next best person to take care of Ray and the gang. And as alive and well as the Rayman community is, if the community doesn't rally around Sparks of Hope and Soliani's Hail Mary effort here to squeeze Rayman, who's been all but forgotten, into one of its DLC episodes, then future projects may not happen. I mean, just look at Guillemot's quotes. They don't exactly breed confidence, at least in my mind. So here's hoping for the best. And one more note on the community. I think it's so impressive, so inspiring that despite the sad state of Rayman, fans are still so active and impassioned about these games, about Rayman himself. There's so many great channels and accounts that push pro-Rayman agendas and help showcase and preserve the history of these games by sharing clips and screen grabs and cool physical game editions and long-lost concept art. It's easy to roll your eyes and think, oh, these people are delusional. But I don't see it that way, because this is not the case for all gaming franchises, those that are dormant and those that are alive and kicking. The Rayman community rolls, so I want to be very clear about that. But I also want to be clear about this too. Fan-created mods and games, as cool and heartfelt as they are, will never have the same cultural impact as officially sanctioned releases. They're also at risk of being shut down, of receiving cease and desists. They're like these semi-underground punk rock efforts or something. That's why they're so cool, but that's also why they can't reach the mainstream in the same way. Unless you're in the know and have a capable PC, you're not going to be able to touch most of these projects. I think back to myself as a kid. I think it was Christmas 1999 or 2000. My grandma gifted me a copy of Rayman 2 for my N64. She thought it looked like something I would like, and she was so right. I still have that neat green cartridge to this day too, and I suppose I want another kid somewhere someday to be able to have that same experience. And unless you have a really hip grandma, she's not going to be hooking you up with a downloaded fan game, right? So this is why this topic matters to me. It's about the fact that this important video game IP is essentially held hostage by Ubisoft and has been for years. And Soliani and his team, as Princess Leia once said, they're our only hope. Please feel free to sound off down in the comments yourself. Let me know where your head is following this latest news. I always love hearing what you think. And if you enjoy my content and want to further support what I do, in addition to unlocking my monthly newsletter, early video previews, an exclusive podcast, and more, go check out my membership tiers over at patreon.com/terapop for just $2 a month, appropriately my LUM tier. You get my newsletter and behind the scenes updates every month, and you also help support future videos just like this one. And we'd also love to have you over in my Discord server, Terapop's Treehouse. It's a super chill place to hang out and talk all things gaming with like-minded people. An invite link along with a link to my Patreon and other social accounts, those are all down in the video description. So thanks for watching, cross your fingers, and I'll catch you next time. Also, real quick, just putting this out there, Curse's face, if you look closely, kind of appears like the Ubisoft logo. Not sure if that's intentional or not, but if you look even more closely, if you zoom in a little more, oh my God!